At first glance, the solar system seems simple. The Sun and 8 planets. Earth, Venus, Mercury, and Mars are 4 rocky worlds. Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn are the ice and gas giants. All of them orbit a single star, each in its own orbit at its own speed. But something else lies beneath this familiar order. Hundreds of unknown worlds with their own oceans, volcanoes, and perhaps even life. And each of them belongs to its own planetary master. For a long time, humanity knew of only one natural satellite, the one that shines in the sky. That changed in 1610 when Galileo Galilei pointed his telescope at Jupiter and discovered moons orbiting another world. Since then, the list has continued to grow. New moons are still being discovered almost every year. Let's set out beyond the familiar planetary orbits and explore the worlds that usually remain hidden in the shadows of their giants. Moons of the solar system. Earth, our home, and the only inhabited planet that we know of. It has one natural satellite, the Moon. And so far, it is the only other world that humans have walked on. It has a diameter of 3,474 kilometers, and its average distance from Earth is 384,000 kilometers. That's close enough for its gravity to reshape our planet every single day. It is the Moon that controls the tides. Compared to its planet, the Moon is disproportionately large. None of the other rocky planets has a satellite of comparable size. It is the 5th largest moon in the solar system. The Moon also moves in such a way that the same side always faces Earth. This hemisphere is covered with impact craters, mountain ranges, and vast frozen lava plains that bear witness to an ancient era of volcanic activity. These are the dark patches we can see with the naked eye from Earth. The far side, however, remained unseen until 1959, when the Soviet spacecraft Luna 3 captured its first images. There, the landscape is completely different. Almost no lava plains, just an endless expanse of craters stretching to the horizon. 2 strikingly different halves of the same world, both seemingly frozen in time. This is because the Moon has almost no atmosphere, allowing traces of past events to remain preserved for a very long time. Even today, you can still see the footprints left by the astronauts in 1969. But Earth didn't limit itself to one satellite. We created thousands more ourselves. These are artificial satellites. Today, more than 14,000 of them orbit our planet, and that number continues to grow. The planet closest to Earth, however, tells a very different story. Venus, one of the brightest points in our night sky. This planet has no natural moons, and the reason lies in one of its strange features. It rotates around its axis clockwise, while others spin in the opposite direction, and so slowly that a Venusian day outlasts its year. That rotation makes it difficult for any large objects to remain in orbit. As a result, tidal forces would sooner or later pull any moon it had toward the planet. Maybe that's how Venus lost it in the past, or maybe the planet never had a natural satellite in the first place. Today, the only object accompanying Venus is Zuzvi, an asteroid less than a kilometer across. Objects like this are known as quasi-satellites. They only seem to be moons, while in reality, they orbit the Sun in sync with the planet. From time to time, Venus does have a satellite, but only an artificial one. The most recent was the Japanese spacecraft Akatsuki. It stopped communicating in 2024, and the mission was officially concluded in 2025. The spacecraft itself is most likely still orbiting Venus. It has simply fallen silent. The next rocky planet presents an even simpler case. Mercury, the smallest, the fastest, and perhaps the loneliest among its neighbors. Right now, it has neither natural nor artificial satellites. Any attempt to lock into its orbit would become a dangerous game with gravity. The reason is simple. It lies too close to the Sun. Any small object nearby would be unable to maintain a stable orbit. It would either be pulled toward the star or ejected into space. There has, however, been one artificial satellite. The Messenger probe orbited Mercury for 4 years before crashing into the planet's surface in 2015. And in 2026, a new mission, Bepi-Colombo, will join Mercury. But another rocky planet actually has something to brag about: Mars. The world we dream of walking on one day. It has 2 moons, and they are surprisingly different from one another. Phobos is the larger of the two, measuring 22 kilometers across. It orbits just 6,000 kilometers above the planet and completes one revolution in only 7.6 hours, faster than Mars rotates on its axis. This proximity makes its orbit unstable. Phobos has extremely weak gravity, so it never became spherical. Instead, it looks more like a jagged, irregular chunk of rock. Its dark surface is covered with impact craters and long grooves. Deimos, the second Martian moon, is almost the complete opposite of Phobos. It is smaller, about 12 kilometers in diameter, and slower, taking roughly 30 hours per revolution. Its surface is smoother, covered in a thick layer of dust. Phobos is gradually sinking by about 2 centimeters per year. In 30 to 50 million years, it is expected to crash into the surface of the red planet. Unlike Phobos, Deimos is slowly moving away from Mars, like our moon from Earth. These are relatively small moons, but the farther we travel from the Sun, the more fascinating the story becomes. Neptune, the farthest planet from our star. And this giant has far more satellites than the rocky worlds. There are 16 moons orbiting it. The smallest is only about 14 kilometers across. The largest, Triton, is 2,707 kilometers in diameter. The largest, Titania, measures 1,578 kilometers across. It would take more than 6,000 moons the size of Triton to fill Neptune completely. 6,000! A giant 2,707 kilometers across, and still a grain of sand against its own planet. And Triton is the biggest one here. Take any one of the others. Even 1,000,000 of them wouldn't fill Neptune. So against that scale, the rest are invisible. The second largest, Proteus, is 420 kilometers in diameter. It reflects only about 6% of the sunlight that reaches it. For comparison, our moon reflects roughly twice as much. That's why Proteus wasn't discovered until 1989, when Voyager 2 flew past Neptune. Neptune's neighbor presents a different picture. Uranus. There are far more worlds in its orbit, and the planet itself breaks the rules. It has 29 discovered moons, and it's the only one in the solar system that rotates on its side, with its axis tilted almost horizontally. Its smallest moon, S2025U1, is about 10 kilometers in diameter. The largest, Titania, measures 1,576 kilometers across. And here, the size difference between the largest moon and its planet is almost unimaginable. Remember those 6,000 Tritons inside Neptune? Well, to fill Uranus completely, it would take 33,000 Titanias. The next moon, however, is much smaller. Miranda, about 472 kilometers in diameter, is the closest large moon to Uranus. It may once have been shattered by a massive collision, and the fragments later reassembled under the influence of gravity. Whatever happened, it left a patchwork of mismatched terrain on the surface. Here lies Verona Rupes, a 20-kilometer cliff. the tallest one in the solar system. Thanks to Miranda's weak gravity, a fall from the top would take about 12 minutes. 2 different worlds, each with its own mysteries. The next planet has even more. Jupiter, the biggest planet. A world with no ground to stand on, spinning so fast its day lasts under 10 hours. It has 115 confirmed moons, and they are incredibly diverse, from small icy chunks of rock to worlds almost the size of small planets. Just 4 moons account for more than 99% of the combined mass of all Jupiter's moons. The other 111 are quite small. The largest one is Ganymede, measuring more than 5,268 kilometers in diameter. It is also the largest moon in the solar system, even larger than the planet Mercury. It may seem enormous, but compared to the planet, it is still tiny. You could fit about 18,700 Ganymedes inside Jupiter. And yet, this speck hides something extraordinary inside. Deep within Ganymede, a core of molten iron generates its own magnetic field, making it the only moon in the solar system known to possess one. Above it lies a thick, icy crust, and beneath it there is likely a whole ocean of water. Farther out orbits Callisto, quiet and scarred by countless impacts. With a diameter of 4,821 kilometers, it is Jupiter's second largest moon and the third largest moon in the solar system. Radiation here is weaker than around Jupiter's other major moons. This is why Callisto is being considered as a base for future expeditions. Io, however, is a completely different story. Measuring 3,643 kilometers in diameter, it is the 4th largest moon in the solar system. Jupiter's immense tidal forces constantly heat it from the inside. The result is hundreds of volcanoes, lava eruptions, and plumes up to 500 kilometers high. It is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. A little farther out lies an entirely different world, cold and smooth. Europa is slightly smaller, about 3,122 kilometers in diameter. Beneath its frozen surface lies a global ocean that may reach depths of up to 100 kilometers. Potentially, it contains 2 to 3 times more water than the world ocean on Earth. You'd think that the largest planet would have the greatest number of moons, but in the solar system, that record belongs to another world. Saturn, the undisputed champion when it comes to the number of moons. It has more than all the other planets combined. Currently, we know about 293. 128 of them, almost half, were only recognized in 2025. Astronomers continue to discover new ones, and the famous rings may be the remains of one more moon, torn apart into tiny particles. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, measures about 5,150 kilometers in diameter. It accounts for roughly 96% of all the mass orbiting the planet. The other 292 moons account for less than 4%. Titan is also the 2nd largest moon in the solar system. Yet, compared to Saturn, even Titan is a mere grain of sand. You could fit about 11,566 such moons inside the planet. But Titan possesses something that almost no other moon has: a dense atmosphere with a pressure 1.5 times greater than Earth's. Beneath it lie seas, lakes, and rivers, not of water, but of liquid methane. It evaporates, falls as rain, and flows through rivers into vast methane seas. The other worlds of Saturn also have some of the basic elements needed for life. Rhea, about 1,528 kilometers in diameter, is a cold world, frozen in time. But in 2010, the Cassini probe discovered oxygen and carbon dioxide there, charged particles trapped in Saturn's magnetic field bombarded Rhea's icy surface, realizing oxygen molecules. The next moon is nearly 3 times smaller. This is Enceladus, and it's about 500 kilometers in diameter. Beneath its icy shell lies an ocean. Jets of water and vapor shoot out into space from cracks in the moon. Within these plumes, Cassini detected hydrogen cyanide, one of the key substances for the origin of life. Hundreds of worlds, each with its own story, its own mysteries, perhaps even its own life forms. All of them orbit their planets, and those planets, in turn, orbit a single star. We are only beginning to grasp the true scale of everything that surrounds us.